Carrie Underwood turned the tables on a tough media personality with just one powerful response. What started as a challenging conversation quickly became a masterclass in confidence, grace, and staying true to your values. If you've ever faced pressure to change who you are, this story is for you. The Los Angeles Media and Entertainment Conference was one of the most prestigious gatherings in the industry, attracting A-list celebrities, media executives, journalists, and entertainment insiders. Held at the luxurious Grand Horizon Convention Center, the event was known for its high-profile discussions, industry insights, and headline-making moments. The conference hall buzzed with energy, the air thick with anticipation, as attendees settled into their seats. Camera crews adjusted their angles, journalists prepared their notes, and social media teams stood by, ready to capture the next viral moment. Among the featured speakers was Carrie Underwood, the Grammy-winning country music icon whose career had spanned decades. Her presence alone had drawn a significant audience, not just country music fans, but industry professionals eager to hear her insights on longevity in music, authenticity, and the evolving role of public figures. Carrie had always been open about her values and beliefs, which made her a fascinating subject in an era where celebrities often found themselves navigating the fine line between personal convictions and public expectations. What Carrie didn't anticipate, however, was that this wouldn't be just another industry panel. Seated across from her on stage was Eleanor Vance, a media personality known for her sharp interviews, bold questions, and ability to create viral, headline-grabbing moments. With the entire event being live-streamed to thousands of viewers, the stakes were high. What started as an insightful discussion was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would put Carrie Underwood in the hot seat and test her ability to remain composed under pressure. Carrie Underwood was no stranger to the spotlight. With a career spanning decades, multiple Grammy Awards, sold-out tours, and a devoted fan base, she had built a reputation not just as a country music superstar, but as a woman of integrity, faith, and unshakable values. From the beginning of her rise to fame, Carrie had always remained authentic, never bending to industry pressures to conform to trends or dilute her personal beliefs. She was admired not only for her powerful voice and stage presence, but also for the way she carried herself, with grace, humility, and confidence in an ever-changing entertainment world. Despite her success, Carrie understood that fame came with constant scrutiny. Over the years, she had faced criticism and praise alike for her openness about topics ranging from her faith to her personal convictions. But she had never let outside voices dictate who she was. She believed that honesty was at the core of her artistry, and she trusted her audience to appreciate her for who she truly was, not just the music she created. As she took the stage at the Los Angeles Media and Entertainment Conference, Carrie was prepared for a meaningful discussion about music, career longevity, and authenticity. She had no idea that she was about to be tested in a way that would push her beyond the realm of rehearsed answers and polite industry talk. This wasn't just an interview, it was about to become a defining moment. The Los Angeles Media and Entertainment Conference was known for its in-depth discussions, but it also had a reputation for producing unexpected viral moments, and no one understood how to create them better than Eleanor Vance. As a seasoned media personality and entertainment critic, Eleanor had built her career on sharp, unfiltered interviews, often pushing her guests into uncomfortable territory. With her poised demeanor and razor-sharp questioning style, she had a knack for turning casual conversations into heated debates that left audiences buzzing. As Carrie Underwood took her seat on stage, she flashed a warm smile, radiating the same effortless grace she was known for. The panel was framed as a discussion about authenticity in the entertainment industry, a subject Carrie was more than comfortable discussing. The initial questions were pleasant and predictable, her thoughts on her latest album, her experience balancing career and motherhood, and her journey as an artist in a rapidly evolving industry. But as the conversation unfolded, Carrie began to sense a shift. Eleanor's smile grew sharper, her tone subtly laced with calculated intent. It was clear she wasn't just here to discuss Carrie's music, she wanted controversy, a reaction, something that would make headlines. Leaning slightly forward in her chair, Eleanor finally steered the conversation into deeper waters. "You've always been open about your values, Carrie," she said, her voice measured but probing. "In today's world, where public figures are often expected to evolve with social change, do you ever worry that holding on to certain personal beliefs might alienate some of your audience?" The question hung in the air. The audience stiffened, sensing that the discussion had just taken a more pointed turn. This wasn't just a casual inquiry, it was a test, an attempt to corner Carrie into either softening her stance or risking backlash. Eleanor had set the stage for a defining moment, and everyone in the room could feel it. Carrie, however, wasn't rattled. Instead, she took a slow breath, steadied her posture, and prepared to respond in a way that no one, especially Eleanor, expected. Eleanor Vance's question hung in the air, loaded with unspoken implications. It wasn't just about Carrie Underwood's values, it was about whether those values still had a place in today's evolving cultural landscape. The audience sensed the weight behind the words, and a hush fell over the room as all eyes turned to Carrie. This wasn't just another interview, it was a subtle challenge, a test designed to make her second-guess herself, hesitate, or retreat. Carrie, however, didn't flinch. She had been in the public eye for years, navigating a world where every word spoken on stage, every lyric written, and every social media post was scrutinized, dissected, and analyzed. She knew exactly what Eleanor was doing, framing the conversation in a way that suggested that staying true to her beliefs was a weakness rather than a strength. It was the kind of tactic designed to make someone feel outdated, irrelevant, even reckless, for holding firm in what they believed. But Carrie had spent too many years standing in the spotlight to be shaken by a carefully crafted question. Instead of rushing to defend herself, she let the moment breathe, allowing the silence to work in her favor. There was power in the pause, in choosing not to react emotionally but, instead, with thoughtfulness and clarity. Finally, she leaned forward slightly, offering a calm, confident smile. "I've always believed that my job as an artist isn't to tell people what to think," she said smoothly, her voice steady and even. "It's to share my truth and let them decide for themselves what resonates with them." A few scattered nods moved through the audience. It was a measured, graceful response, one that reaffirmed her stance without sounding defensive or confrontational. Eleanor, however, wasn't done. She matched Carrie's smile, but there was a sharper edge to it now. "Fair enough," Eleanor said, her tone polite but unrelenting. "But don't you think that, as a public figure, your truth carries weight? That it could influence people in ways you may not intend?" It was a clever move, positioning Carrie's values as potentially problematic. The tension in the room tightened, and for the first time it became clear this wasn't just an interview, it was a battle of narratives. Eleanor Vance's second question wasn't just a follow-up, it was a calculated push. By implying that Carrie Underwood's beliefs could have unintended consequences, she was subtly suggesting that holding firm to personal values might not only be controversial but also irresponsible for someone with such influence. It was a tactic designed to corner Carrie, to make her either backpedal on her stance or appear rigid and out of touch. The energy in the room shifted. The audience, comprised of media executives, fellow artists, and industry insiders, leaned in, sensing that the conversation had entered dangerous territory. The atmosphere, once casual and engaging, now felt like a high-stakes debate. Even those watching from backstage could feel it. Carrie felt it too. She recognized this moment for what it was, a test. If she reacted too strongly, she'd feed the narrative that she was defensive. If she softened her stance, she'd risk compromising who she was. Either way, the moment would go viral. But how she handled it would define the story. She took a slow breath, her expression calm but unwavering. Eleanor was expecting hesitation, a stumble, a break in composure. But Carrie had no intention of giving her one. Instead of responding immediately, she did something unexpected. She tilted her head slightly, as if genuinely considering the question. That's an interesting perspective," she said, her tone thoughtful rather than confrontational. "Are you suggesting that being authentic, sticking to my values, might be a problem?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Carrie had just flipped the script. By asking Eleanor to clarify, she put the moderator on the spot. suddenly shifting the pressure back onto her. Eleanor blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She hadn't expected Carrie to turn the question back on her. For the first time, the power dynamics shifted. The audience could sense it. The first crack in Eleanor's carefully controlled approach. And just like that, the interview that was meant to challenge Carrie had now turned into Eleanor's moment of reckoning. A brief pause followed Carrie Underwood's counter-question, a moment of charged silence that held the entire room captive. Eleanor Vance, who had spent years steering interviews exactly where she wanted them to go, now found herself in an unfamiliar position, on the receiving end of scrutiny. Carrie's response had been masterful. She hadn't denied or deflected the question, she had simply asked for clarification, subtly placing the burden back on Eleanor. Eleanor quickly recovered, offering a polished, practiced smile. "I just mean that times are changing," she said, her tone measured but carrying an undercurrent of insistence. "And sometimes, holding on to traditional views can make a person seem, well, a little out of touch." Carrie didn't flinch. Instead, she let the words settle, then leaned forward slightly. "Out of touch," she repeated, as if testing the phrase. Her voice remained calm, but there was a quiet strength behind it. "It's interesting that you use that term, because to me, holding on to values like kindness, faith, and integrity isn't about being outdated. It's about staying grounded." The reaction was immediate. A wave of applause swept through the audience. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was resounding, decisive support. Some audience members even stood, nodding in agreement. Carrie's words had struck a chord. But she wasn't done. She turned slightly toward Eleanor, her expression poised yet unmistakably firm. "We talk a lot about diversity, don't we?" she continued. "Diversity in appearance, diversity in backgrounds. But shouldn't we also respect diversity in thought? Isn't that part of what makes conversations like this meaningful?" Eleanor's lips parted slightly as if to respond, but for the first time that evening she hesitated. She knew she had just lost control of the narrative. The very thing she had hoped to use to challenge Carrie had instead become a moment of clarity and conviction. Carrie, sensing the shift, sat back with a small, knowing smile. She hadn't raised her voice, she hadn't resorted to defensiveness. She had simply spoken her truth, and in doing so she had turned the conversation in her favor. The applause only grew louder. In just a few sentences, Carrie had not only dismantled the trap Eleanor had set, she had reshaped the entire conversation. And as the cameras rolled, capturing every second, it became clear. This moment wasn't just an interview, it was a defining stand for authenticity. The moment Carrie Underwood turned the conversation in her favor, the energy in the room shifted entirely. Eleanor Vance, once the unquestioned authority in the discussion, now seemed unsure of her footing. Her polished confidence wavered, if only for a second, but it was enough for the audience to notice. She forced a polite chuckle, quickly flipping through her notes, attempting to steer the discussion back into safer territory. But it was too late. The damage was done, and everyone watching, both in the audience and online, recognized it. As the conversation wrapped up, Carrie remained gracious and composed, answering a few more closing questions before stepping off stage. But even before she left the conference hall, her words had already taken on a life of their own. Within minutes, clips of the exchange flooded social media with hashtags like Carrie Underwood clapback, respect all voices, and Grace Under Fire trending across platforms. Fans and commentators alike praised her poise, intelligence, and ability to stand firm in the face of pressure. This wasn't just a viral moment, it was the spark of a larger cultural discussion about authenticity, media bias, and the treatment of public figures. News outlets jumped on the story, running headlines such as Carrie Underwood shuts down loaded question with class, and country star's powerful response sparks debate on public figures and personal beliefs. While some defended Eleanor's hard-hitting approach, the overwhelming response was in Carrie's favor, with many admiring her ability to remain unshaken under scrutiny. When reporters later asked Carrie about the viral moment, she simply smiled and said, "I think it's important to be true to yourself. That's all I was doing." Her words, like her performance that night, were simple yet powerful, a reminder that standing firm in your beliefs can be done with both strength and grace. The story of Carrie Underwood's viral interview teaches a powerful lesson about authenticity, composure, and the importance of standing firm in your beliefs, even in the face of public scrutiny. In a world where opinions are constantly challenged and narratives are shaped by media influence, Carrie's ability to remain calm, collected, and unwavering serves as an example of how true strength isn't about reacting emotionally, but about responding with grace and conviction. Her encounter with Eleanor Vance highlights the tactics often used to pressure individuals into questioning their own values, subtly implying that staying true to oneself may be outdated or problematic. However, rather than falling into the trap, Carrie turned the conversation in her favor, proving that authenticity is not a weakness, it is a source of power. The overwhelming support she received afterward further emphasizes that people respect those who stand by their principles, even if they don't always agree with them. The lesson here is clear. Staying true to who you are is always more valuable than conforming for the sake of acceptance. Carrie's story is a reminder that grace under pressure can turn even the most difficult moments into defining victories.